this movie is great. It's weird. Don't get it twisted. It is a weird film, but it's really good. See it on the biggest screen you can because it was shot with IMAX cameras. But I went into Ryan Coogler's new Southern horror gothic film expecting a movie about isolated people trying to defend themselves from monsters in the style of Aliens, The Thing, 30 Days of Night. Like I was just expecting a straight up action horror because he even used the same crew as he did in Black Panther. But this movie is more about music than it is monsters, and I was not expecting that. It's about how we should, and we do, use music as a weapon to fight against oppression and as a tool to rally against assimilation. Ryan grabs you by the shoulders and shakes you and says, like, remember who you are, like full Mufasa style. And I really appreciated that. I really liked it. This could have easily been a great action horror film with, a lot of style and a little bit of substance because he's a great director. He makes good action films. We've seen it in Black Panther and Creed. But this movie has so much shit going on that for the first 50 minutes, I completely forgot I was watching a horror film. The world building, the drama, it's so good that I was completely sucked in and reminded once again that Michael B. Jordan is so fucking good. It's such a strong film. This is simultaneously the blackest film, one of the blackest films I've ever seen, while also being surprisingly culturally ambiguous. And I don't mean that the characters in this film are racially or culturally ambiguous, because they're not, right? This movie is set in Southern America in the 1930s, but Coogler manages to fold in messaging that is important to so many different cultures that it works for everyone. It is inclusive, not exclusive, right? Yes, this movie is set in the South US in the 1930s, and pretty much everyone in this movie is African American, but the fact they are black isn't their whole character, which is a trap that a lot of movies who are written by less adept people fall into, especially in horror. Like, the characters in this movie, they take action that is informed by their race and the culture and the part of the world they find themselves in, but they are not immoral or moral based on their race, right? They are all really complex shades of grey, and they all have these deep and rich connections to other characters that I found so enthralling to watch. I am a white Australian, right? There is a storyline in this movie that made me go, yeah, it is fucked up that I don't have more of a connection, or I don't know more about this part of the world, because I like the music from there and I have ancestors from there, and it made me go on a deep dive after this movie had finished. And I think, like, not many movies could have made me do that, but I think this movie will do that for a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. This movie is also sexy as all hell, right? Like, the romance in this movie have so much chemistry. It's one of the few films I've seen in recent times where I believed that the people on screen wanted to fuck each other, right? Like, some movies, you're like, okay, I get the romance. Like, especially in horror, I love horror, but sometimes you're just like, I don't feel it at all. I know sometimes that's because they're horny teens about to get chopped up by Jason Voorhees, but this movie, you're like, these guys, like, we're watching the chemistry happen. Like, it is alchemy. It is alchemy on screen. The mix of beautiful cinematography, there's rich writing, there's an absolutely fire soundtrack and score. Like, and like this movie, the score and soundtrack are all different genres. They all piece together so well that this movie had me completely immersed. This is an engrossing cinema theater experience, and I'm stoked for everyone involved. Like, I hope this movie does really, really well because it's so original. And if you're sick of the same repeated slop that a lot of studios are serving us, this movie is the tonic. If we support this movie, it sort of sends a message. Hey, we actually give a fuck what you are showing us. We want take a chance. Take a chance on good filmmakers making original shit. And that's what Sinners is. It's a good filmmaker in Ryan Coogler making original shit, and it's awesome. Sinners takes place in 1932, where twins and World War I veterans Smoke and Stack return to their hometown in the Mississippi Delta after years of running around Chicago with the likes of Al Capone being cheeky lads. They decide to come home and open up a juke joint, which is basically a nightclub that caters to the black community. So with their little cousin Sammy, who's an aspiring blues musician, they set out to basically get all the resources they're going to need for their grand opening. Signs, food, booze, we get to see them source all of it. However, it takes a turn when halfway through their grand opening, a mysterious stranger played magnificently by Jack O'Connell turns up with some lackeys and tries to convince the twins to let him in. When the twins refuse, that is when this movie turns into the horror genre, and we get to see the danger of assimilation and trusting unknown men with pretty words who love ragtime music. Hells yeah, what a fucking setup. This movie is really good. I fucking love the idea of this movie. Like I've already alluded to, this movie it's just fucking great. I think there is something for everyone in this movie. There is fantastic fight choreography, like we know Coogler can do that from Creed. There are solid gore effects. There's a blistering soundtrack. There's visuals that look like they could be lifted directly from Nat Geo. There is a long list of characters that you absolutely adore. And this movie does take a little bit to set up those chess pieces. It uses the lads needing supplies for their grand opening as a reason to explore their hometown, and have the twins introduce you to all the minor characters, and you get to learn how they feel about the twins, how they feel about music, how they feel about what white America has been up to in that town. And it almost feels reminiscent of a heist movie. You know, in every heist movie where there's that bit where they get the crew together, and it's really effective because you get to know all the characters in a really short amount of time. This movie does that, and it's really good at establishing characters, which is so important because by the time the horror hits, there is real tension there because there's like 10 characters that you like and you don't want to get hurt, and that is where the tension comes from. Miles Catton is fantastic in his debut role as Sammy. He's so incredibly talented, and he seems to be musically channeling this like Buddy Guy, Bill Williams mashup, which I really liked. Michael B. Jordan was incredible as both Smoke and Stack. They're two identical twins that couldn't be, ironically, more different. When I first saw them, right, one has a red hat and one's wearing a blue hat, and I was kind of like, oh, that's pretty fucking goofy. But the character of each of them was played so differently by Jordan that it ends up working really well. Smoke is this like all business type who knows exactly what they're there for, and he's all about sticking to the mission, while Stack is this slightly more hedonistic, a bit cheekier. He's a bit happy to join in the revelry quicker than Smoke would have. But they are both total badasses. They obviously really love their community, and they both are really protective of each other and their family, even though they're two completely different characters. This movie is also incredibly sexy. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Haley Steinfeld's character and Stack, but for me, the real attraction there was the chemistry between Smoke and Annie, who's played by Wunmi Musaku. Jesus Christ, these two are as hot as the Australian sun. I can't, like, there's such a deep connection there. They've got such a real relationship in about 2 to 3 in 1 2 to 3 minute scene. You get all their history, and it doesn't feel like an exposition dump, right? They care about each other so deeply. They both understood why the characters sort of made the decisions they have up until that point. And when the shit hits the fan, they are constantly checking in with each other. And that's what you do in a real relationship, right? If you've got a strong relationship, when things go south, you check in with your partner because you respect not only their opinion, but you want to make sure they're okay and, how are you holding up? And they do that constantly in this movie, and it felt so fucking real. They had my heart from the first scene they were in together, and which is good. That's really good because you want them both to be okay. You spend the whole movie going, Jesus Christ, please get out of this. And it's really good. Wunmi Musaku is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors between this and her work in the Black Panther series, but also in His House. She's so fucking good. But one of the most surprising things this movie does is what Ryan Coogler does, where he draws lines between the different cultures and timelines. There are multiple times where he shows music as a celebration of culture and something to be protected. And in a movie that is set in South USA with an aspiring blues musician as the focus, you would think that would feel exclusive to a lot of other cultures. You think like, no, this is our story and it's just about our story. But it's not. It feels the opposite. It feels so inclusive of other cultures. If you understand the contextual clues that are dropped by the big bad in this movie, you also come to realize that while he is putting up a bit of a charismatic front and while he is trying to manipulate the twins, he's also from a culture that has a bit of a similar story to theirs, and I wasn't expecting that from a big budget genre film. So, fucking kudos to Ryan Coogler for pulling that off. That is a really hard thing to do. And I think he absolutely nailed it in this one. And after saying all that, the issues I have with this film are so fucking minor. But one is when the showdown actually happens with the monsters, although the fight scene is fucking epic, and Coogler shows all the skills he obviously learned in action directing from Creed and the Marvel movies, the monsters seem quite underpowered, which was in direct contrast to sort of what's been built up throughout the movie. The second is there's a scene involving Native American characters that it's so interesting and I so desperately wanted to explore it more, but we never go back to it. But that's to be fair to Ryan, that is a personal thing for me. I was really interested in that storyline, so when we didn't go back to it, I was like, oh. But that would have made it like a 3-hour fucking movie, so I understand why it's not in the movie. And really, just any other issues come down to preference, right? There is a phenomenal music scene in this movie about halfway through before the horror kicks in that I loved. But when I saw it, I'm like, I know people are going to have an issue with this scene. Especially if you're not expecting it. I loved it, but, I can sense that some people are going to be like, what the fuck was that weird abstract scene in the middle? It's almost psychedelic. I really liked it, but I think that's going to be the hinge point on whether you like this movie or not, to be fair. There's also, something this movie does really well is there is a mid-credits scene that is so good. It is probably one of the best mid-credit scene I've ever seen in a horror movie. It's so good, so stick around for that. Don't leave the cinema too early. I recommend watching this if you love Southern horror, Frailty, Skeleton Key, Candyman. The recent Hellboy I actually really liked, and it's a Appalachian horror. If this is a more beautiful version of those movies. If you love movies about music, this is a film about music first and a horror second. One of my favorite movies of all time is Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic. And there are scenes in that movie where I feel like Miles Catton had the same power. He wielded the same power as Joaquin Phoenix did in that movie, which is fucking crazy considering this is his debut. But yeah, if you like the vibe of Walk the Line, that sort of thing, this is very much that. If you love a movie that ties up all the loose ends, there are a lot of characters that we follow in this movie, and all of them that I can think of, almost all of them at least, it ties up the story of them well. You know where they are, you know what they're going on to do. It's really good, and it must have been really hard to do in the 2 hour runtime of this movie. Like it's really really well done. I don't recommend watching this if you want a straight up scary film. This is good, but it's not scary. Like I wasn't scared. It's tense, but once again, not scary. If you don't like blues music, I think this will pretty much work for anyone. Even if you don't like blues music, but if you have a hatred of blues music, this follows a blues musician, so maybe you want to skip this one. But it is like I like blues music. I'm not particularly in love with blues music, and it still works for me. But yeah, it's a fucking this movie's a banger. So it was a bit hard to think of recommendations for this movie because it's quite unique. But I'm going to give it my best shot. A recent horror movie that really digs into the cultural significance of music is a movie. It's an Irish indie film called All You Need Is Death. It's an odd and disturbing little movie about a couple of, I think they're called ethnomusicians. I think that's the study of music. But they travel around Ireland recording and collecting rare Irish folk songs in the hopes of getting rich because they can then sell them on to collectors. It's a horror movie, so the problem is they delve too deep and they unleash an ancient evil. While not everything in this movie worked for me, the historical, detective, and music parts of this movie worked really well, and the horror parts of this movie worked really well. It's so I think it is worthwhile. It's a really interesting film, and it is fucking disturbing. Like there are points in this movie where there's some practical effects and stuff that are just flat out fucking gross. So All You Need Is Death. I think it's a Shudder film, so you should be able to see it on Shudder. Another decent movie that has similar vibes to Sinners is Near Dark. This is one of my favorite movies that no one seems to talk about or give love to. It's almost like it's forgotten, and I don't know whether that's because it's a little bit hard to get a hold of nowadays. It's made by Catherine Bigelow, who gave us Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker. It's a fucked up horror western with a fantastic romance arc. It's not as culturally important and deep as Sinners, but it is a really interesting cross-genre horror that takes place in a poor Oklahoma town. When this was made, Bigelow was married to James Cameron, so she sort of used his influence to convince a lot of the Aliens cast members to jump over and make a weird hillbilly vampire film. It stars Bill Paxton, Lance Hendrickson, and Jeanette Goldstein. I love it, even though it's a bit difficult to find. It's really good. It's creepy as hell. It's awesome. If you love Southern horror, fucking get your hands on it. It's so good. That's it. Let me know what you thought about Sinners if you did end up seeing it. I do feel like this is one of the films that really, really lends itself to being seen in cinemas. I think, too, this is going to be an unexpected triumph for horror, like The Substance was last year. I do think this will probably be this year's The Substance. So let me know if you have seen it and what you thought. Hopefully I'll see you next week for another review. Peace.